suddenly I would just stop everything that I was doing, and it was as if I'd heard someone calling me. The room was pitch black. Mom and Dad woke up and they just saw me talking to... Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Yolanda Melody. Today I'm going to tell my spiritual awakening story. So those of you who've been subscribed for quite a while have seen the huge transition that happened with my channel. I went from doing fashion videos and hauls, and then over the past few months my channel has just changed completely. All my videos now are about spirituality, meditation, the third eye, herbal remedies and more. And to a lot of people it might just look like I had this crazy awakening like 6 months ago and suddenly I want to tell everyone about it. But the truth is, I've always been like this. Everyone's journey is different. With my awakening journey, I feel like the foundation was always there, but there has been certain pivotal points in my life that have propelled me. And I wanted to do this video today just for anyone who's feeling alone, and also I want to see if there's other people that have had similar experiences to me. What I often find is when you open up about something to other people, you find that they actually can relate. And the more people that share their journey and their experiences, the more we all start to be able to see the bigger picture. We may also have revelations. So, that being said, let's start right from the beginning. My childhood. From the moment that I was born, I always felt this huge godly presence around me. And I wasn't brought up in a predominantly Christian environment. My family didn't go to church. There was no one there lecturing me about sins and the Bible or anything like that. But ever since I can remember, I've always felt a connection between me and God. Now, a lot of people get triggered by the word God. What I basically mean is the creator, a higher power. And when I was young, it felt as if I had this spiritual protection around me. It was just so intuitively strong. And all of my memories of when I was a child, before I went to school, were happy. And they weren't just happy, it was like I always had this feeling of euphoria. I could see there was beauty everywhere. I just remember the feeling of love. And up until the moment that I went to school, I didn't see the ugliness in the world. I didn't really feel like I was in that vibration. My parents said that everyone in the village knew my name and they knew who I was because I would just talk to anyone and everyone. And every encounter that I had with people was nice. In addition to this, I don't have any memory of this consciously, but my parents have told me that I had imaginary friends. Oh, bollocks. There we go. So let's get into that. The imaginary friends. Remember, I do not have any conscious memories of this happening, but what used to happen was, say for example, I'd be in the kitchen and my parents would be talking to me. Suddenly, I would just stop everything that I was doing, and it was like I was looking over somewhere else. And it was as if I'd heard someone calling me, and I used to apparently just run up the stairs and I would be upstairs talking to what seemed to be thin air for about 2 hours at a time. Now, the first person to ever notice this happening was my mom. She said that it was going on for about 2 weeks and she hadn't said anything to my dad because she didn't want to freak him out. And then obviously when I was really young, I slept in my parents' bedroom, and the one night I just sat bolt upright. The room was pitch black. Mom and Dad woke up and they just saw me talking to the wall. It was like they could hear the one side of the conversation that was coming from me, but I was like nodding and saying yes and no to whatever spirits I was talking to. Apparently, I told them a whole description of where the spirits came from. I said that they came from a door that was at the bottom of the stairs, but it wasn't where our front door was. It was just It's really hard to describe, but it was just weird. Anyway, there was 2 spirits that I used to speak to, and I always used to talk to them when they were together. One was called Zeus and one was called Zulu. Again, this is just me hearing the story from my parents. I have absolutely no recollection of this whatsoever. And I never used to make stuff up as a kid, like making up stories just doesn't really, it's never really been my thing. I have too many crazy stories that have actually happened, so I don't know. Anyway, the weird thing is, years later, researching about mythology and occult practices, etc., Zeus, as many of us know, is a Greek god. And Zulu, well, if you Google it, Zulu is a demon. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I can't wrap my head around it. Well, no, I can, because I believe in ghosts, I believe in an afterlife, I believe in all of this spiritual stuff, so really I've just always been wondering what it means. Another thing that I used to do is when I was bolt upright in the bed, talking to the spirits, I kept saying to Mum and Dad, "Can't you see the lights?" And it was pitch black. So I suppose that was the first sign of many that I was spiritually connected in some way. So anyway, life was great and I was happy. And then it came to the stage where I had to go to school. I can remember it so vividly that Mum and Dad kept saying, "Oh, you're going to school next week." And I thought, I don't know what that is. I don't know why you're talking about this thing, but I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm doing. And then suddenly the day comes where I am actually going to school, and it was like one of the worst days of my life. That to me was the pivotal point between life being perfect, happy, the world was great, and then suddenly, as a child, I just get taken into this institution. From the moment that I stepped into those doors, I felt like it was a prison. I've always felt like school is a prison. The feeling that I got from being in that institution was like the most awful, gut-wrenching feeling. And my parents struggled ever since with the school system because I couldn't stand being there. Literally from day one. It got to the stage where I wouldn't eat. My mom had to pick me up from school at lunchtime because I just went on hunger strike. I just had that much anxiety and I was that distressed that I just couldn't eat. And what I couldn't understand was all the rest of the kids seemed to be settling in quite well, but I was just like the odd one out. I remember being in a classroom, they'd shut all the windows and the curtains so that we could watch something on the TV, and I remember they played the videotape and we're all sat on the floor, and the person on the TV was like chanting some kind of, I think it was like a mathematics nursery rhyme or something. But what was weird was how every single child in the room was chanting simultaneously. It was like automatically they started copying what was going on the TV, and it was like, it really felt like brainwashing. I was the only kid that just looked around and was like, what is going on? And the kids were like mindlessly like glued to the TV and chanting and clapping, and I was just like, again, the odd one out. You know how like most of us, we can't really remember our childhood very well? I have very vague memories of my childhood, but there's certain things that just stick in your mind. You know, there's certain memories that just stand out, and that is one of them. That was like my first taste of, oh, I don't fit in. And that theme just carried on and on and on for the rest of my life since. So fast forward through all of the phases. So I had massive struggles with the education system all the way through and ended up dropping out of 3 schools. Most of you guys already know that story. Then I became a goth. I suppose that was a pivotal point for me because it was the first time that I decided to really, really rebel against everything that was mainstream, and I'd accumulated so much darkness and so much trauma all the way throughout school that my goth days were like a way of me expressing that and just saying fuck you. What I liked as well is that the goth community was like nothing else I'd experienced. The whole vibe with goths is very morbid and dark, but it's also very outrageous, and I also formed so many close bonds with people. And we talked about real shit. Like, everyone in that community had went through so many struggles, and we all connected on a deeper level than just who's got the best handbag or who's got the most money, who's the most popular, you know? Eventually I grew out of the goth phase, went through a few other phases that were quite self-destructive. I think I was really desperately just trying to find where I fit in, and what I found was that no matter where I go, I still didn't quite fit in. And I think as you go through your spiritual journey, you start to learn to appreciate that you're not supposed to fit in. Every single one of us is unique. Every single one of us has something to offer the world, and that's the beauty of it. A lot of groups and communities and cults, they fit in with each other because what they do is they sacrifice their own individuality to fit in. It's not because they all just happen to be exactly the same. They often make it that way. So even through the goth phase, I still believed in God. No matter what different phase I go through when it comes to spirituality, God is always just the core of it. So at some point, when I'd went through many stages of self-destruction, it did get to the point where my life really was in danger. I'm not going to go into detail about it in this video because that is a whole big story that I'm not really ready to share yet. But what I will say is that things got bad. Really bad. And I was at one of my old jobs. I came across a community of what I believe to be Pentecostal Christians. It was a moment that I'll always remember. And the thing was, these Christians were travelling across the UK, I believe, and they just so happened to be there at the same time that I was going through a really, really dark time. I spoke to the woman at the head of the congregation. Her husband was a pastor, and I met up with them, and they brought my faith back. They came to me, they helped me, and then they went off to the next place. They didn't want me to sign up for anything, they didn't want anything from me, they didn't try and get me roped into a cult or anything like that. They genuinely just wanted to help me. They prayed for me, and I honestly credit my healing from that situation all to God. It was a situation that I alone did not have the strength to overcome, and I really was at a point where I needed divine intervention. And ever since that moment, I have just been seeking truth, knowledge, answers, and I tried going to church a few times to try and meet other people that were like-minded, and what I often find is that the people that I've seen in church, it's like they don't even believe in God themselves. It's like they don't actually believe anything spiritual, and it seems like they're just there because someone's told them to go there, or they've been brought up to go to church because that's what you do. I don't know if other people have noticed this anomaly, maybe it's just the area that I'm from, but the level of hypocrisy with certain people that claim to be religious or Christians, or they go to church, but then they live an immoral life, they lie, they bitch about people, and when you talk about deeper spiritual things, it's like they look at you as if you're crazy. I just don't understand it. So going to church to try and meet other like-minded people didn't work out for me. And I always felt like, why do I have to go to a certain place to talk to God? That's not right. I can talk to God wherever I am. And this is why I don't class myself as a Christian. I believe that spirituality and religion gets hijacked so much. And when someone who has hunger for a lot of power gets hold of religion and realizes how much you can control other people with it, it's just so damaging, because then what happens is people turn their back on their spirituality altogether because they just have so many bad memories stories of people trying to control them and manipulate them through religion. And this is when I get into the New Age phase. So I mention my New Age phase a lot on my channel, and there's loads of different stories that I have connected to it. I became so empowered by the New Age movement, and I learned so much about spirituality, and I'm still learning every single day. But the problem with the New Age movement is when something becomes so popular, things can start to get twisted. You can hear me talk about this more on my ego death video. I experienced an ego death, and in that video I talk about the pitfalls of what happens when potential cult leaders decide to promote this ideology, and they give you techniques to remove your ego. I also learned so much about manifestation. Again, I've done videos about manifestation on my channel, but again, manifestation ends up getting a bad name because MLMs and pyramid schemes and cults use the belief system of manifestation to their advantage, and they use it to manipulate people. So I got so engulfed in learning about spirituality that I ended up coming across a few people that I now believe are low-key cult leaders. There's a lot of them in the community, okay? And then, at some point, I started watching New Age to Jesus testimonies. Now, before you click off, I'm not converted. However, I've watched a lot of these testimonies, and there are certain things that I noticed came up in all of the testimonies, and I actually found them to be quite relatable as well. And for someone who became so heavily identified in spirituality, it was really difficult to process the idea that everything that I'd learned about was quote unquote satanic. But don't we always say in the spiritual community that the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off? And we all know that the awakening process is about shattering old belief systems, having to learn hard truths, and not being in denial about things. And I wish that I could tell you guys that I've found the answers and that this is the way to go. But what I've found is that I've always seen truth in every different religion. I see truth in the New Age movement. I strongly believe that there is evil and good, and that morals come into play with all that. I don't believe that the universe doesn't identify good from bad and that everything's just random. I find that there's a lot of things in the Bible that get misinterpreted by people. I don't for a second believe that God is some authoritarian at the top telling us what to do. Nah, that's the government. Don't get them mixed up. Just because we're so used to authoritarians telling us what to do and saying that they'll punish us if we don't do what they're telling us to do, does not mean to say that that's the way that God works. My God doesn't work like that. I've never, ever felt like God is ruling over me. I also don't believe in judging other people for what they do. It's not our job to judge. So yeah, I've been talking for a really long time. So let me know what you'd like to see next. I'm not going to be doing a New Age to Jesus testimony video anytime soon, but I do think that this is important for anyone who's spiritual. I feel like we need to at least have a conversation about this, because I do believe there's a lot of deception going on, and there are some certain spiritual practices that are actually detrimental to us, if you know what I mean. And I really want to talk about it, but I just don't want to piss people off. I don't know, I think I'm tired. Anyway, please comment down below your thoughts, and you know what? Comment if you can relate to any of the experiences that I've discussed in the video. Defo, let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop it a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Love you, bye!